Hey people, we're live. Let's move the microphone a little bit closer. Now, officially, we won't go live for another 8 minutes, but this is just a quick test because I'm just spent the last hour talking to myself, which was just lovely, by the way. If you ever get a chance to do a webinar for yourself and just have a conversation about what it is that you believe in and how it's beautiful for everybody else to believe in whatever it is that they believe in, and to come up with the infographic description of your cosmology, I highly recommend it. But it seems that the microphone wasn't set up in Google Hangouts. So it looks like I'm talking, and it certainly felt like I was talking. But unless you can lip read, that hour is silent. So here are the highlights. I did a lot of that, scratching. Basically, this is the introduction for the Oneness Talking Point webinar series. I'm trying out some technology that I've had on hand for some time and haven't activated it in any of the work that I do. Something is definitely calling me to speak. It's asking for a particular perspective that includes all of those tangents or so-called tangents that come up for me when I listen and converse with other people about reality, spirituality, parenthood, self-awareness, consciousness, so many wonderful things. The conversations in this series will be free. The conversations will be from a oneness experience perspective, not as a goal. I'm not making myself the model of something that you can learn through me. I'm confessing what it is to have a oneness experience. And part of that oneness experience, you can think of it like a yin yang or a satellite orbiting a satellite. So there's the oneness experience and the surrender experience, and they are an inseparable part of one thing, my cosmology. So one of the best ways I've found so far to describe what a cosmology is in oneness, because we have all these fantastic pronouns, I, we, them, us, other, and they exist in time and they exist in separateness, a separateness that sees the world where time space is a flexible sheet and matter is separate from energy, or matter is separate from the etheric, the air and the atmosphere and the gravity forces that we can't necessarily touch. In the oneness experience, the world doesn't look like that, doesn't feel like that, doesn't make sense like that. In my oneness experience, without pronouns, I know we'll get to it, how that makes sense. In my oneness experience, the cosmology, everything is a pool of data, of oneness, of all that is. There's no vessel to be occupied by divine energy. There's no vessel to be born and to live and to perish. The separateness story is an equal and essential aspect of all that is. but it's not how I am being asked to experience or see or speak about the world. If you have a separateness perspective, there are plenty of places that you can have the oneness experience as a goal, or you can have the oneness experience as a small part of your life, and you try and expand it into most of your life. And I can recommend people that you can go and listen to for free and become part of their communities for, a small fee, if that is your truth. And at all times, I defer to your truth. I'm not teaching you anything. I'm not revealing anything foundational or fixed about the world. Okay, now that we got the stuff out of the way, the oneness experience as it is, not as a goal, but as it's already happening now, sees the world like an ocean. So we have all these pronouns of I, and we have this sense of this is a body and this is matter, and this is the end of my skin, and this is the world out here, the thing that's separate from me outside. And all of the things that are inside are either inside the matter or inside my consciousness. And my consciousness can be separated from all the other consciousnesses because I have an identity, and my spirit and my soul and my connection to the divine is its own entity, right? That's not how it works in the oneness experience. In the oneness experience, there's just one ocean. There's one pool of data. It looks like, it feels like, it seems like there are things called individuals and entities with souls. But the best way I can describe it is, imagine there's an ocean, and in that ocean you see a whirlpool. Now, the whirlpool looks like it's a separate shape that can be separated from the ocean. But at no time is that whirlpool actually a fixed set of drops. The drops that are involved in making that whirlpool look like a whirlpool are constantly changing. They are never separate from the ocean. They are the ocean. They just appear to be a whirlpool that you can draw an outline and say this is a shape, right? So the pronoun reality is a bit like that. So the I, and you, and we, us and them, it seems like we have an identity. It seems like we have flesh that is matter, and then there are things outside of our flesh that are non-matter. But even within the so-called scientific realm, any investigation into physics and matter and identity, senses, perception, will lead you to the place where there are no boundaries. So the measure of the end of your skin is a perceptual bias. So we see it, it seems to be the end of a separation, a boundary. And in oneness, it seems like that for a reason. There's no need to change the seemingness of how it seems. And that comes back to the surrender experience. So rather than seeing surrender as an act where you let go of whatever it is that you're perceiving at the moment, the surrender experience is either already true or it's not. You are either already accepting and seeing the world as one, seeing the world as a pool of data, seeing identities as whirlpools of an ocean. Or you're not. You're seeing it differently. So from a oneness experience perspective, any one of those whirlpools sees the world and experiences the world, for want of a better term, from a particular cosmology or perspective. And that's a function of the pool of data of all that is. So there's no sense of separation from that truth. So even though I can stand as my whirlpoolness of constantly changing ocean and accept that all perspectives are simply whirlpools, that doesn't necessarily mean that the other whirlpools will see the world the same way. And I will honor the way that they see it, because that's the way they see it. They're meant to see it the way that they see it. That is their truth. That is part of an equal and essential part of the pool of data of all that is. Okay. So there's a physics to this stuff that becomes apparent. How is it that it only looks like our skin ends here? How is it that it feels like we have an identity? How is it that we have a language built around separation of pronouns of I and you and we and us and them? So that's part of the conversation we'll be having in the oneness talking point. Another part of that conversation will be a confession. So as someone having the oneness experience, I'll be able to talk into places that aren't being discussed at the moment on the planet. Most of the conversations about oneness are oneness the goal or oneness the practice. So oneness is identified as an experience of feeling flow, for example, whereas someone having the oneness experience recognizes everything as flow. So I recognize drama and frustration, or the things that we have labeled drama and frustration. I recognize those things as flow. They're not different. They're not separate. They're flow by any other name. The beauty of flow being everything is only available in the surrender experience. So they're pretty much the same thing, the oneness experience and the surrender experience. So the oneness experience is you already see everything as part of this single pool of data. The surrender experience allows you to be present to whatever's going on or whatever seems to be going on as sacred. So you don't question it unless questioning it is part of the experience you're having. You're not trying to get out of it to get somewhere else unless that's the experience you're being asked to have. You're not judging it as positive or negative unless that's the experience you're being asked to have. So in the beginning, it's a bit convoluted. And I guess that's why we're going to have a series of conversations about this, and we'll keep coming back to it because it'll make sense in some places and it won't make sense in others. And I don't want this to be an explanation and a description of something that's foreign to you that I know that you don't. I want this to be a conversation about the oneness experience as a thing that's happening now for the people who are having that experience. This is not a goal. This is not a how-to. If you're not having the oneness experience and you want to have a conversation about how to, we can talk about that in a session. You know, we can have, I would probably send you to the Perfect Present 8-week experience. If you felt like oneness or surrender was the experience that you're meant to be having and you're not having, I would send you to that online program so that we could have a conversation about your truth. So the Perfect Present 8-week experience works for any cosmology. So any of the whirlpools in the ocean can come to that program and see their own truth. It doesn't steer you in any particular direction. It allows you to be in a safe space to reveal what is already true for you, and then to choose to accept it and honor it or not. And either way, to be responsible for that choice, either because it is something imposed upon you by your cosmology or because it's a very strong sense that you're driven by, that you can't control, that you have to go in that direction. Either way, that 8-week experience allows you and makes visible something that you can't find anywhere else. It's not an answer to the problem. You can come to it with your problems and it will have a non-pathology conversation with you about the problem solution paradigm. It won't try and talk you out of having problems. It will allow problems to be important, and it will ask you where they fit and how they're already on purpose, and it will follow you to the end of the universe, to wherever your truth and your guidance takes you. Whereas, you know, most things will say your vibration needs to be higher, or here is a way to uplift your vibration. There'll be some outcome, you know, that's better than what's going on now. All of the work that I do is about your truth. There's never an outcome. It's only the outcomes that you create. And if you create them, then we will go with you with those outcomes. But nowhere in any of the conversations that we have here or anywhere else will there be an XYZ. Will there be a do this in order to change that so that you can have whatever you want at the end. And I think the surrender experience as a now process rather than a goal is a really powerful conversation and very frightening one for people that it's not true for. So I guess you need to be conscious of and make a decision about whether this is the conversation you want to be having, because the surrender experience really does allow whatever's going on to be on purpose. And that's not something that we're told to do. That's not something that we're used to. We're used to going, oh, you've got a snotty nose. Here's a tissue, take some vitamin C, go to bed, have some aspirin, whatever it is, right? There's a pathology about our experiences. And it goes both ways. You know, or you're looking healthy and fit, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. There's a sense that we're controlling what's going on, that we're attracting or permitting, and that we can change. Like the world is full of all this separate entities with all their electromagnetic forces, and that somehow we can influence one another. The oneness experience doesn't see the world like that. The oneness experience sees the world as an ocean of whirlpools. Doesn't see that whirlpool as a fixed point, as a fixed set of drops. It sees that whirlpool as an aspect of the ocean, and the drops that are making up its shape are constantly changing and are constantly part of an indivisible ocean. So we don't travel over time to influence someone, or we don't send out an energy force to influence someone. It's a very different way of understanding what's going on, the physics of oneness. And I think I'm just going to stop there because I'm going to have another installment. But this was just a quick introduction to pique your interest, and to see if the microphone settings work now that I've changed them. So if you're interested, there's going to be a lot more of this. And if you're not, then, you know, obviously I'm happy for you to go wherever it is that you need to be in order for you to feel honored, and safe, and all the things that you want for yourself. So thanks for listening, and I love you just the way you are, and we'll talk soon.